Okay, I'm going to demonstrate how I think is the best way to make this watercolor mixing chart. You're going to mix each color with every other color that you have. So I recommend that you start out by organizing these in the same way that they are labeled here. So that's there. So I also make that same label. I'm going to do this in real time, and then I'm going to slow it down, speed it up once I get started. So I recommend that you take each one of these and that you get a large surface and leave space between and make 5 little dots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You don't need a lot of watercolor because you're mixing it, as you've probably noticed in your last 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's see if you can see that. Pretty much. I might speed this part up too until I get started. But there's some things I want to talk about. You have to really make sure that you keep your brush clean, because if you don't keep your brush clean, you're going to contaminate. You're going to have muddy colors. They're going to look more dull than they actually should. One of the things about watercolors is that it's just basically pigments. So dry powders, colored pigments that have been processed to a really super fine powder, and they're ground down with gum arabic or some other kind of medium, depending on the manufacturer, but most of them use gum arabic. Some of them use honey as well, so that they won't dry up really fast if you have them in your tubes. You might be familiar with the pan watercolors, and those also are pretty much the same thing. They're left out to dry. And in keeping your brush clean, you want to have 2 water containers, so that one of them you can use to clean your brush and one of them you can use to have for clean water. I like having this to drop my water into when I'm mixing, just like 1 drop at a time. But since you don't have one, I'm not going to use it. But if you have something like that, you might try using it and see how useful it is to you. So the reason I'm doing this is because I'm going to first paint out each color. So it's a grid. This grid is 1 inch by 1 1/2 inch, and then I'm going to put the instructions on how to make it before you get to this video. So yellow, red, and yellow, red is going to be yellow, red. So I'm going to paint each of the colors directly on here first, and then I'll start mixing. And once I get to that part, I'm going to just speed up the video so that you can see how it works. I want to leave everything where you can see it, so you can see there's a rag, how to keep your brush clean, because that can be tricky if you're just starting watercolor the first time. So the first thing I'm going to do is wet my brush, and I'm going to get some of the yellow red that I put here. And you know, you might want to do this, put your tubes by the color if you're not familiar with watercolor, just to keep everything straight. And maybe you're not going to go all the way to the very edge, because if they touch each other, they'll bleed. So I'm just going to leave that like that. Now I'm going to clean my brush on this dry rag, and I'm going to use this as my cleaning water, and I'm going to use this as my water to go ahead and pick up more paint. Right now, since that was the first time I used it, it's clean, so I'm just going to go ahead and pick up some of this paint and make a little puddle of yellow so I can paint the yellow here. So what's going to happen is that each time you paint, you mix everything on this side is just going to be flipped over on that side. And so on this side, we're going to mix everything heavier with yellow blue, so that if we mix yellow blue with yellow red, it's going to lean more towards the yellow blue, and then on this side it'll lean more towards the yellow red. Oh, wow, it would be over here because it would be flipped. Okay, so next, clean that. And the next one is the blue yellow, which is the phthalo blue. Wrong place. So the nice thing about watercolor is that you can pick it up. So it's still going to leave a little bit there. But this is going to be a blue color anyway, so I'm not going to worry about it. But you do have to pay attention. Even I make mistakes like that. And this is the ultramarine blue. I'm just going to ignore that. And that's kind of faint. I know that this blue gets darker, so I'm just going to put in a little bit more pigment in there with that one. And this is ultramarine blue, which is a granulating color. And that basically means that a granulating color, you'll be able to see the little dots of dry powder pigment separating from the water. And that's just one of the characteristics of watercolors. For professional watercolorists, when they purchase them, they will look at what pigment is in the watercolor and what characteristics it has. How transparent is it? How much does it granulate? Does it not granulate? And this is quinacridone red rose, which is one of the weaker colors of the colors that you have. When you mixed your color wheel, the instructions were to visually mix it so that it looks 2 parts one color, 1 part another color, like 2 parts yellow, 1 part blue. And if you were using this quinacridone rose, the red blue, you would need to use a lot of it because it's rather weak, say, in comparison to this lemon yellow or phthalo blue. And this is the final color. This is permanent red. Okay, so we're going to mix yellow blue with yellow red, so the 2 yellows. So I'm going to take some of, now I would recommend if you don't have something this big, you could augment it by putting those in a little bit of each of those and mixing it in a separate space. I'm going to work in here as long as I can, but I have that in case I need more. So I'm going to test it out first. I have this scrap watercolor paper, and it still looks a lot like that one. So I'm going to add more of the other yellow. And this is where a dropper might come in handy, because if I dip my water, this in there, I'm going to tint all that water a little yellow. This is still pretty clean, and it's my cleaning water, so I am going to pick up a little bit of water there. Now it looks more like the other yellow, so a little bit more of this. And I'm going to go with that here. And next to that, you can see that this is a little bit brighter because it's been influenced by